The morning sun broke over the ridge like liquid gold spilling across the vast plains. Dust hung in the air, soft and slow, as if time itself refused to hurry in the small western town of Red Hollow. Horses snorted near the saloon. Wagons creaked under the weight of hay, and far down the dirt road, a lone rider appeared, hat low, coat long, shadow stretching across the waking street. His name was Colton Hayes, a quiet cowboy, whose eyes carried the color of storm clouds and the weight of stories he never told. He wasn't the kind who talked much, but people noticed him, the kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice to make others listen. That morning, as his boots hit the wooden porch of the general store, a whisper followed him. The rancher from Silver Creek is back. He didn't come for trouble. He came for supplies and maybe, unknowingly, for something more. Inside the store, among the faint smell of grain and soap, stood a young woman rearranging jars on a high shelf. Her name was Clara Mae Dawson. She had hair the color of honey in sunlight and eyes that always seemed to be searching for something beyond the horizon. Life hadn't been kind to her. Her father's debts had chained her to Red Hollow, and years of small-town gossip had turned her smile into a rare thing. Colton's entrance startled her. The sound of his boots against the floorboards echoed like a drumbeat. She turned quickly, knocking over a tin of flour. A white cloud puffed into the air between them. He caught the falling tin with one hand, steady as stone, and set it gently on the counter. "Sorry, sir," she stammered, brushing her apron. He smiled faintly. No harm done. Their eyes met, brief, quiet, uncertain. For a moment, the world outside seemed to hold its breath. Colton picked up his supplies in silence, but as he turned to leave, he noticed a small sketchbook lying open on the counter. It wasn't for sale. It was hers. Inside, he saw rough pencil drawings, horses, sunsets, and faces, beautiful faces full of emotion and life. "You draw these?" he asked softly. Clara froze, embarrassed. "They're nothing, just scribbles." He looked again, longer this time. "They look like truth to me." Her cheeks flushed under his gaze, and she quickly closed the book. "Truth doesn't sell much around here," she whispered. He smiled a quiet, knowing smile and tipped his hat before stepping out into the sunlight. For the next few days, Red Hollow buzzed with whispers. The cowboy who never stayed long had started showing up every morning at the store. He didn't talk much. He'd just stand by the counter, sometimes helping her lift crates, sometimes waiting until she finished sweeping before heading back to his horse. And each time, he'd leave a single wild flower on the counter. No words, no reasons. By the fifth morning, Clara couldn't help herself. "You don't have to keep doing that," she said softly, holding the tiny bloom between her fingers. "I know," he replied, his voice low but steady. "But I want to." There was something about the way he said it, like he meant every word. It scared her and comforted her at the same time. One afternoon, the town gathered near the edge of the ridge for the summer fair. Music played, children laughed, and lanterns flickered even before the sun went down. Clara stood behind a table of homemade pies, smiling politely, though her eyes often drifted to the horizon. And sure enough, there he was, Colton Hayes, walking toward her through the golden dust. His stride slow, his gaze locked only on her. "You gonna tell me which one's yours?" he asked, glancing at the pies. She smiled shyly. "Apple, but it's too sweet." He nodded. "Good, life's bitter enough." They sat together on the fence, sharing the pie as the fair carried on. She told him about her father, her lost dreams, and the way the town never let her forget her mistakes. He listened, really listened, the way no one ever had. And when the music slowed, he stood, extended his hand, and said, "Dance with me." "I can't," she said, shaking her head. "People will stare." "Let them," he said simply. So she did, barefoot on the dirt, her laughter mixed with the fiddle tune, her heart lighter than it had been in years. For the first time, she didn't care who was watching. When the song ended, they stood close, the warm breeze between them. She looked up at him, sunlight touching her cheeks, eyes full of something she couldn't name. And then, quietly, almost like a confession, she whispered, "I'm not pretty." Colton looked at her for a long moment. His voice was low but certain, steady as the earth beneath them. "That's fine," he said. "I need honest, not fancy." The words sank into her heart like rain into dry soil. She didn't answer, just smiled softly, a real smile this time. Around them, the town lights glimmered. The sky faded to rose gold, and for once, Red Hollow didn't feel so small. As the wind carried dust and laughter across the fields, one thing was clear: sometimes beauty isn't in what you see, but in what stays, what listens, and what loves you quietly when no one else does. The next morning, Red Hollow woke under a restless sky. The wind had changed, sharp, fast, carrying the kind of chill that warned of trouble. Clouds gathered low over the horizon, and even the horses sensed it, their uneasy neighs echoing across the open plains. Clara stood outside the general store, the same place where it all began. She stared down the road, waiting for Colton Hayes. He'd promised to stop by before heading back to his ranch near Silver Creek. But as the hours passed and the dust blew harder, worry started to creep in. He didn't come. By noon, a rider from Silver Creek arrived in town with grim news. Bandits, he said between breaths, hit the northern ridge, took cattle. Colton tried to stop him. Clara's heart dropped. She didn't wait for more. Grabbing her shawl, she ran home, threw on her boots, and saddled the old chestnut horse her father once rode. Against the town's warnings, she rode out into the growing storm. The wind tore at her hair, the sky bruised with thunderclouds, but she didn't stop. Every hoofbeat echoed her heartbeat, fast, desperate, afraid. When she reached Silver Creek, the ranch was silent. The corral gates hung open, hay scattered like a battlefield, and near the water trough, she found him, Colton, leaning against a fence post, blood on his sleeve but still standing tall. "Clara," he said, voice low, as if her name alone was enough to steady him. She jumped off her horse and rushed to him. "You're hurt." "Just a scratch," he lied, clutching his side where the blood darkened his shirt. "Don't you dare do that," she snapped, her voice trembling. "Don't you dare pretend it's nothing." He smiled faintly, even through the pain. "You rode all this way for me?" Her eyes filled. "You think I wouldn't?" He didn't answer, just looked at her the way a man looks at sunlight after too long in the dark. She tore part of her dress hem to wrap his wound. The rain started, soft at first, then heavy, washing the dust from the land and from the walls she'd built around her heart. Under the gray daylight, everything felt raw and real. No fairgrounds, no music. Just a people, standing in the storm, trying to save each other in ways words couldn't. When she finished tying the bandage, Colton leaned against the fence, his breath slow but steady. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "Then where should I be?" She shot back. "Hiding in that town, waiting to hear you're gone." He sighed, shaking his head. "You deserve better than a man like me. My life's full of scars, things I can't undo." Clara looked him straight in the eyes. "So is mine. But maybe that's why we fit." He opened his mouth to speak but stopped when lightning cracked in the distance. The sky rumbled like a beast waking. The rain poured harder, soaking them both. She reached out, her hand trembling, and touched his face. "You think I care about fancy dresses or quiet lives? You listened to me when no one did. You saw me when I couldn't see myself." He caught her hand gently, pressed it against his cheek. "And you made me remember what it feels like to belong." For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the sound of rain and heartbeats filled the silence between them. When they finally rode back toward Red Hollow, the town was waiting. The sheriff met them at the edge, eyes wide. "You both okay?" he asked. Colton nodded. "We will be." Rumors spread fast, how the quiet rancher fought off the bandits, how the store girl rode through a storm for him. But for once, Clara didn't care what they said. She stood beside Colton in the dusty street, her hand in his, and for the first time, the whispers didn't sting, they sounded like applause. Days turned into weeks. Colton's wound healed, though he still limped slightly. Clara helped him rebuild the broken fence at Silver Creek, her laughter filling the empty fields. Some evenings, they'd sit by the fire, talking about everything and nothing, the kind of silence that only comes when two souls finally find home in each other. One evening, as the sunset bled across the sky in gold and crimson, Clara looked at him and said softly, "You know, people still say we're an odd pair." Colton chuckled. "They're not wrong." She smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. "Maybe I'm not the prettiest, and maybe you're not the gentlest, but together, we're something real." He turned to her, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. Real's all I ever wanted. They sat there until the stars came out, the crickets singing, the wind whispering through the grass, and somewhere between the light and the dark, they both understood. Love doesn't need to be polished or perfect. It just needs to be true. As the fire crackled, Colton reached for her hand and said, "Clara Mae Dawson, you changed everything I thought I knew about love." She looked up, tears shimmering in her eyes. "And you showed me it was still worth believing in." The next morning, the town saw them ride out together, side by side, toward the horizon where the sun rose bright over the plains. The dust lifted behind them like a promise that honest hearts always find their way home. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel Old West Story for more cinematic love stories from the Wild West, where every heart beats a little stronger beneath the open sky.